Hi, thank you for joining us again here at the Canton Clay Works. I'm Tim Scull, the owner, also known as Tim the Potter. What I wanted to do today, which is our fourth beginner instructional video, is to just do a quick review of the hand positions you've seen in the three previous videos. One thing I do want to interject quickly is that you're going to study with a series of different instructors. We're all going to have different philosophies and different approaches in different hand positions. Your goal as a beginner student is grab onto a teacher, learn that technique, move on to some other teachers, learn their techniques, and then cull that information as a cumulative knowledge and find out what works the best for you. I don't advocate that one person's positions and techniques are necessarily better than others. Some can be more efficient, some can be more logical. So we're going to get going right now. So I take the ball of clay that I have. I support the clay in the right hand. I'm throwing right-handed. I'm going to throw this ball of clay down into the center point in these concentric circles incised into the wheel head. So I take the ball of clay in my right hand, hold it right above the center point, supported by the left, and now that's attached to the wheel head. I then go around and smear the outer shoulder into the wheel head. Not the whole side wall, but just the lower outer shoulder. So it's clearly attached. Our first three hand positions to get this ball of clay on center, and getting it on center means the millions of clay platelets in this ball of clay are going to be aligned in a series of concentric circles. That is what's going to allow us to make a symmetrical pot. Three hand positions for getting the clay on center. The first is called the double-headed bird. That's the double-headed bird. These are my fingers, palm, heel of the hand, and what I call the heel of the thumb. What we're going to do here is push in this U shape of the hand, not using the fingers, into the ball of clay at the wheel head, pushing the clay in laterally at 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock. And if you notice, the clay elongates vertically. I'm not wrapping my fingers around it. I then always use a lot of moisture. I squash the top down just ever so gently. Now for coning up a piece this big, that is as much as I need to cone up. So let me just go over that right here in front of the piece, the double-headed bird. Okay, now we're going to cone down. Coning down is I'm going to use the bulbous muscle of the left thumb that's going to go on the top of the cone, but at the 7 o'clock side from center, like that. Tuck the elbow. This motion is down like this, compressing the clay down towards the wheel head. As I compress the clay down towards the wheel head, the clay is going to spiral outward. That spiraling outward is going to be met by the right hand, which is going to wrap around behind the left thumb, which is what I call the saddle of the thumb. So this is the top of our mold, this is the side of our mold. I have a great deal of pressure and compression with the right hand pushing in. Elbows tucked in, leaning in through the right hand, and hold it here for a significant duration of time. I'm talking 15 seconds. When we're throwing on the potter's wheel, 15 seconds feels like a week. Beginners tend to move their hands too rapidly. You want the clay to conform to your mold, so your mold must be stationary even though the clay is moving at quite a rate. So now, the third position is called cosmetic centering, and that's the right hand coming down on top, compressing down. I always tell my students like a karate chop. And the left hand is coming over at the wheel, on the wheel head at 7 o'clock. This is the outside wall being compressed in. This is the top being compressed down. This is a finesse hand position. It's gentle. I call it cosmetic centering. We're just trying to get the last 10% of the clay on center. So again, cosmetic centering is the right hand down on top. The left hand comes in at 7 o'clock, pushing in gently at 7 and down gently on top. What we're looking for is this clay to be absolutely buttery smooth with no undulations. So this is 100% on center. Our next hand position is opening up. The technique I teach my students for opening up on a piece this large or this small is I take the index finger of the left hand, wrap it around at 12 o'clock. I extend the left thumb out into that perpendicular angle. This ends up being my guide for my right finger. I'm going to clean my hands up so you can see this a little better. The right finger is my tool finger that goes down into the clay and opens it. And this perpendicular angle of the left thumb is my guide. So I sink my right finger down until I believe I have about a ½ inch on the bottom. And then I pull off to the side slightly, creating a little nipple or a little mound in the very bottom of the pot. So notice something that we have now that we've opened it only a couple inches. That's our rim. Our former rim was out here, so now we have two rims. And what we do consistently and constantly is we go back to our rims to compress our rims. The way I do that is I take my left index finger and my left thumb. I squeeze the walls together and pull up just slightly. As I do this motion, the top of the mold is my right index finger, which comes down on top, creating a perpendicular mold. So I squeeze this wall, pull it up slightly, and compress down with the right index finger. It's perfectly fine if you want to use a sponge in your right index finger. Makes it a lot smoother and buttery. So that's simply how we open. Now if I want to open it further, my technique of opening it more, which is unusual and unique compared to other potters, is a technique I use with the right hand being passive. I put two fingers of the right hand in here. These are flaccid, passive, non-engaged fingers. I then take my left fingers like this and put them perpendicular across the top of the right fingers, and all the motion is coming from the left hand. The reason I do this is that I found many, many years ago that I'm very, very strong in the right hand. And when I would pull pots open, my right hand muscles would contract and expand, and I would have irregular tension on the inside wall of the pot, pulling it off center. So now I use my right hand as a passive tool and my left hand as an athletic engaging tool to pull open horizontally like this. So now you see the big mound on the bottom of the pot. And we take our rib tool, and we're going to use this flat edge of our rib tool. We're going to compress the bottom and compress the clay platelets on the bottom of the pot to become tight and dry. So we take it at a 45-degree angle. We're compressing the inside radius from the center point to the inside wall at 3 o'clock while we're spinning counterclockwise. I move it back and forth, I push it down firmly, and you'll see when I lift the rib, I've trimmed off some of the wet clay and that little mound. The principle of leaving that little mound is we are taking a larger volume of clay and attempting to compress it into a smaller volume area. And what that does is when we compress it into a smaller area, it tightens the clay platelets. I go back to checking my rim. So there's a nice cat food bowl. And what we're going to do now is grab this wall, squeeze the clay, and pull it vertically, which is a hand position called pulling up. I fold my right index finger like this, and I put it on the wheel head at 5 o'clock. I take the left index finger and middle finger on the inside hooked, not straight, but hooked as the counter pressure on the inside. I'm essentially making a claw or a clamp. I connect the two thumbs so I have a hinge. This is my motion. My claw grabs the clay and then pulls it vertically. So I'm going to squeeze in with 90% of the pressure from the outside hand, and I pull the clay up gently. I release the pressure as it comes up so I don't squeeze the wall too thin. Now the rim, you see there's a slight wobble in the rim. That's perfectly normal. Moisten the rim and do the hand position of compressing the rim. Again, it's the left index finger, left thumb, squeezing the wall, pulling slightly up, and compressing down with the right index finger. Okay, we can still pull up a little bit. We're looking for a really smooth wall in a trapezoid shape. And this wedge below this line is where my thicker, drier clay is. So I take my knuckle and I push it into the wheel head into that outer shoulder of thicker clay, hook my thumbs together, and grab that clay and pull it up. Now the side wall of this pot is going to be moist, soft, and now that it's been moved vertically, it's going to be weaker. So as we go vertically, we need to lighten up our pressure. So we are tapering our pressure from the lower shoulder to the upper rim. We are lightening up as we go vertically because the clay is much softer at that stage. Now we check our rim once again. So those are the very basic hand positions that I've used in the first 3 videos to make a basic cylinder. We're going to do another video next, and I'm going to show a few varieties of bowls that you haven't seen yet using these same hand positions. Thanks again for joining us.